there, and welcome to your full crew live. Today we're going to be talking about AAM and EVTOL. We've got some great articles to discuss, including the upcoming Dubai 2025 Air Show. I've actually been to the UAE, and they are always at the forefront of advancement, so I'm really excited to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about a cool partnership between GE Aerospace and Data Technologies, and we've got some amazing guests to discuss these topics today. So I'm going to start with Captain Fahad. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your expertise.
Thank you for having me. First and foremost, it's been about 26 years of aviation history, starting from the military, being flying fast jets at a time, commercial jets at another, CRMI, trained in profile, been there, done that as well. Just like all of us who had to reinvent ourselves during the COVID, it took me some time to regroup. But at present, I am researching into three-fold aspects. The first is the advanced air mobility, which is why I'm here. Two is artificial intelligence, and number three is quantum computing. I think the triad of these three generated a lot of effect and generated a solution for everyone who is in the loop of AAM space. The up-and-coming thing, once again, is the final frontier for inner space operations within the atmosphere. I think advanced air mobility is the leading edge for now and sometime in the future also. So that's where I've been. That's where I am. But importantly, where I am heading. So the vision which I hold for me is to add value to global aviation. That's what I do. Maybe on the print media, social media, televised media, been there, done that at a few events internationally, Dubai Show, Royal National Tattoo, last but not the least, Fangro, and a few others. So trained, develop human resource, human capital for times to come, and looking forward to adding value to your efforts as well. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, happy to have you on, and I think you'll more than be able to contribute to the effort today. So next up, we've got Angelo. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Angelo Collins. I got my undergraduate degree in aerospace engineering in Maryland, and my master's at Virginia Tech. Most of my career was in support to DARPA. Actually, mostly protocol flight programs, but I did work on the 6th-gen fighter. This was a little while ago. We were working on that for a bit. And now I'm the executive director of the Vertical Flight Society. It's a professional technical society for engineers and scientists that care about vertical flight research. We celebrate vertical flight advancements here. And we were founded in 1943, so we've been around a while. And I'm the 7th executive director in our history. So great to be here.
Well, excited to have you on. And last but not least, we're actually going to be adding somebody last second here. So Don Berchoff, the Weather Don. So Don, nice to have you on. Happy you can make it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, as if our audience doesn't know you already.
Well, Mike, sorry to running a minute late, 3 minutes late. I didn't give you a heart attack. So like the weather, my schedule is uncertain. I think that I'm Don Berchoff. I'm the CEO of TruWeather Solutions. We started the company to unlock the power of science and technology that was not getting released into society or businesses, especially in the aviation industry. We're still operating in the 1990s in some of our technology, and now as we move into the drone and air taxi and electric vehicle industry, this is becoming more and more important to get our arms around better infrastructure, better data, as we need better precision to meet the needs of this industry. So TruWeather, that's what we do. I'm Air Force retired meteorologist by trade. I did run an Air Force base in Central Asia, though, so I have a very deep background in aviation, logistics, and weather. And it's been a combination of that's really led me down this path. I was also the Science and Technology Director at the National Weather Service for 4 years, so I have a really good understanding of the technology and the weather technology and modeling and where the gaps are. And so we're trying to fill those gaps to help this industry.
Well, excited to have you on, and happy that you didn't miss the show because you had a really good article, which I'm just going to recap real quick. So let's see. So the electric vertical takeoff and landing advanced air mobility aircraft integration pilot program is going through participation selection, and there's no way I would have been able to talk about that on my own. So thank God you showed up. All right.
Yeah, it's something that I'm paying a lot of attention to. A lot of people are. It's a significant, allows for an acceleration in learning and doing it under very safe conditions. As the FAA did with their initial drone IPPs starting in like 2017. And I think it's a really important initiative to share information back with the government and to us to learn and accelerate together, into a safe environment.
Yep, absolutely. And we're going to be talking about it in more detail at the end of the show. You are Article 3. So first off, we're going to start with Angelo and this GE Aerospace and Data Technologies partnership. So tell us a little bit about what's going on here and why this partnership is going to be significant.
Yeah, so it's exciting to see these types of developments. We've been talking about AAM now. I think some folks would say it's still new, or at least some folks are still being exposed to it. But it's been going on for a little while. I mean, I was the administrative chair for our first transformative vertical flight event that the VFS ran back in 2014. So that was 11 years ago. That was before I just got married. I've been married for 12 years and I have 3 kids now, so I feel like it's been a lifetime since we've been talking about this. Well, I point that out in part because early on, it was we were looking at purely electric propulsion and using a lithium-ion battery, and we were looking at advancements in lightweight structures and the efficiency of the battery, electric drivetrain design, efficiencies of motors, and just general design, the outer mold line, how many props are you going to have, how do you distribute that propulsion. But it's interesting now that these EVTOL companies like Beta that we're talking about in this article, as well as Archer and Joby, are all partnering with defense. Originally it was primarily civil. And you're starting to see the next increment possibly being, not to say that purely electric's going away, but they've made these great advancements with pure electric. But now let's push it to the next step. We're pushing it to the next precipice, where you could say, all right, I can get a lot more power if I do a hybrid propulsion system. And maybe the DoD will care about this. And so that's what's happening right now between Beta and GE, for example, where they have an aircraft, they have the ALIA. It's already, has these exceptional, features that were designed for, originally electric propulsion. But now, can we stick a hybrid propulsion system? In GE's case, they're looking at turbine hybrid propulsion. Others are looking at diesel. But how does it coupling that potentially have defense applications? And the DoD is particularly interested with a hybrid propulsion system, what you can do with that. And so that's why it's exciting to see this type of progress. This is a great snapshot or example of the future of what even the DoD is going to be capable of doing. And we're really excited about these EVTOL companies kind of diversifying a bit and working with the DoD, but also working with private sector, civil sector. And so, yeah, I mean, beyond that, substantial amount of investment from GE in Beta. There's a lot of confidence in Beta, headquartered in Burlington. One of the Vertical Flight Society's proud members, both companies. GE's been a member for maybe 80 years, and Beta now for roughly 6 or 7. And so we're excited to see this type of progress.
So how does this compare to like previous trends? Are you seeing more partnerships of this nature, more interest from the DoD side in projects like this, or is it just a progression of where we've already been kind of heading to?
So early on, for example, at DARPA, we were looking at, so our first TVF event was across the street from DARPA. there was the VTOL X plane that was looking at a hybrid propulsion system, distributed electric propulsion. We had down selected to Aurora Flight Sciences, and they weren't even owned by Boeing at the time. So there was interest there. It was like, all right, we've proved it. Now we're going to move on to something else. The private sector took off. This investment took off, and but the DoD was never particularly interested in a purely electric aircraft. There wasn't a lot of range and power. That's all they care about, right? Don't put chevrons on the exhaust of my jet engine. I'm going to lose 2% of the power. I don't care if the decibels drop by 5. I don't care. You know, I need the power. But I mean, there are maybe pure electric applications, but now that the eVTOL sector has made some progress, the DoD is revisiting some of these platforms with a hybrid propulsion system. So that's encouraging to see. Archer is partnered with Anduril now, and I think Joby is partnered with trying to remember. Joby partnered with L3 Harris just recently, so it's been a trend. So you're seeing that partnership now, and others too, but there's legitimacy.
And Captain Fahad, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I believe this is ideal, considering both elements that are required. One is the experience that comes along with GE and Beta with all its intent of doing good to the aviation ecosystem. This is a good synergy of the two, where both competencies, skill sets, as well as the financial effect. I was going through the article. Excellent pick, Angelo. I believe it's very relevant for the time, especially in a day and age where resources are scarce. There have been and there will be a lot of mergers, pardon to use this word, acquisitions as well in times to come, a lot of collaboration, which will facilitate growth of the AAM space. And it's only a matter of time when this maturity comes in. We tend to generate maximum effect, as I mentioned before, through synergy. So Beta and GE, I believe, an ideal combo.
Don, what about you? Any thoughts?
Yes, I'm relieved. As a former logistics-based commander in a staging base in a war zone, outside of a war zone, trying to figure out how I'm going to get electric capabilities to downrange to support electric vehicles was kind of a nightmare. I used to have a fuel farm with, these huge bladders, and even though they were difficult, they were, a little bit easier, I think, to deal with in that environment. So that's the first. The second is that, unfortunately, wind is a problem, and electric vehicle, battery management, power management, and weight carried, and all those things are all trade-offs. You have a conserved system for carrying a power. And, I was a aircrew meteorologist back in the 80s. We used to do the fuel planning for overseas flights and for refueling in air refueling tracks for F-16s and F-15s. And, you can always carry more fuel if you needed to, if the winds were uncertain. Now, it wasn't always the best thing to do if you were carrying more weight to burn more fuel, but it was also your hedge against risk. And, if you look at the war in Ukraine, well, we hear about all the great things that are happening with drones, and they are great things. But the one thing we really don't talk about is the weather impacts that do cause a little bit of chaos in the planning phases of using drones in a much larger scale and to perform missions that previously were done with artillery and other things. So it's, I'm kind of relieved to know that there's option there, and that it's going to, remove, logistics and supply, lines of control kind of things. And it's also going to hopefully mitigate some of the wind and weather impacts.
Captain Fahad, I see you kind of like, you have a comment to that, or?
Yeah, not a comment. It's a query, because correctly mentioned by Angelo, range and payload as a question mark every time we talk on advanced air mobility. Considering the powertrain difference from pure electric to a hybrid, if you can give me a rough estimate percentage-wise, what kind of a jump are we looking at?
Yeah, so hybrid propulsion isn't necessarily better than a traditional internal combustion engine in aviation. If you look at and this is the fun nerdy stuff, right? An internal combustion engine isn't even as efficient as a diesel engine. A four-stroke diesel engine is a great efficient motor, but you're still only looking at, I think, 40% efficiency, something, what is it, 40 or 60, something like that. There's still trade-offs with the hybrid propulsion system, although you have the power reserve. You're still pushing out similar types of kilowatts for the motors. There's a limitation there because you're still powering motors, but you have a substantially larger energy plenum to use to play with. And maybe you do size your motors up if you can, or you push more power if they can take it. It's certainly a step of an improvement as far as range and endurance, but you are burning fuel in a hybrid propulsion system. There's trade-offs, right? A motor is maybe a brushless motor is 90% efficient, but a generator isn't known for being an efficient thing, whether it's powering your home or whatnot. You have to burn fuel, turn it into electricity, through cables to power appliances and things. But it is, I think, fuel is has higher energy density than lithium-ion batteries for the weight. So you can look at it like that. But it's not as necessarily as efficient. Helicopters can hover for like 3 hours, right, on a full tank. And so you can't quite get there even with hybrid. But it is enough. And the design space truly opens up when you can look at using motors instead of drivetrain systems and gearboxes and things. Yeah.
I certainly believe it's a matter of time because maturity, as I mentioned before, in these systems will come eventually. And I believe the triad, which I mentioned before, AAM, AI, and QC, quantum computing, will generate solutions which have not been there before. So paradigm shift, probably, if I quote this correctly, is around the corner. But thank you, Angelo.
Just real quick before we move on to the next portion, Angelo, what do you think about the material science of batteries? Are there expected evolutions like dry batteries? Are these better at like energy density equations, or are we gonna kind of be with the battery technology that we currently have for a little bit longer with AAM?
So like the battery chemistry piece of it is evolving, and there are substantial developments being made there. Not a margin, what's the expression? A step function or an order of magnitude improvement, but incremental improvements. A hybrid propulsion system, whether it's diesel or turbine, is using jet fuel or diesel to power the generator to power the electricity. And a lot of aircraft do have APUs, or I worked on the F-35. We had something called the IPP, integrated power pack, and that's technically a generator. And the F-35 had 2 lithium-ion batteries in it, 28-volt and what was the other one? And so, there are batteries in aviation applications. EVTOL, if you want to get the range and endurance, there does need to be some more advances in just pure, battery density. But there's some progress being made there.
All right, thank you. We're going to be moving on to a really fun article next. So talking about the 2025 Dubai Air Show. So Captain Fahad, take us off.
Yes, so been there, done that in 2023. I was sifting through various articles on Dubai Air Show. So this came very close to where I operate. So advanced air mobility is not only expected to be a small event at the 2025 Dubai Air Show. It's certainly a launch pad for the future because it connects so many different variables from the ecosystem in the AAM space. Not to mention their push that has come across from the government or the services where the city is planning to debut start next year, electric flying taxis as well. So connecting to non-topic regulatory is something very important here. And to Angelo's intent, we need to look at the technological aspect as well. We cannot let go of both of them. So this article touches upon both as I picked this for the same reason. The highlights of the event, and as mentioned, are threefold. One is the pavilion that they're having, the AAM pavilion, in which we will have big players, Joby Archer, Beta, as if I'm not wrong, Beta as well, but as well as the Eastern players from the Orient. China will be there. India also will show its presence. And then the aviation mobility stage, where we will have discussions on various aspects. The UAE has its presence as well. K2 is a company which is doing this. Autocraft is also there. So localizing efforts is something which is done. The infrastructure is another important. What do we call them? Vertiports, that's the phrase that is being used. So Skyports is a company which will show its presence as well at the Dubai Air Show. They're already in the process of constructing this infrastructure. And let's see what do they have to offer at the 2025 event. So this event itself is not only a localized thing. Global participation is there. And I believe with hands coming together and synergizing efforts, there can and there will be a lot of push ahead. As correctly mentioned by Angelo, this is a slow but sure road ahead. And the Dubai Air Show is some place where almost everyone, if not everyone, is getting together. So threefold, we have leadership, we have actions taking place at the event, and there's a global perspective on all three. I believe it's a matter of jump up, a step at a time, making sure that we manage all risks possible and generate maximum effect for the AAM space on the global scale of things. So I'm really looking forward to the 2025 event, and it's going to be, if not huge, better than last time.
Well, I'm hoping I could get to it myself. It does seem like a great event, and I did love my time last time in the UAE. I think one thing I'd like to highlight is just the UAE in general puts a lot of emphasis on technology development. I've seen firsthand the great work that they do in the space through TII, which is one of the companies that I've had the benefit of working with through the Drone Code Foundation. But I want to put some emphasis on why it's a unique environment for this technology, not only for being a great test bed, because of not only the layout of the UAE and the different cities and the distance between them, but also unique environmental challenges, sandstorms, winds, things like that. So I think it's actually, there's a reason beyond just money that it's become a hub. It's a cultural thing, and then also a great environment for this technology to kind of get a foothold. So I don't know if you've had any experience that you could speak to that validates my opinion.
No, that's very true. I would take this opinion to option to quote Steve Jobs, and I quote, "Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower." And innovation is what is happening in AAM space right now. And Dubai Air Show is one of the places where everyone on the the AAM space or the eco cycle are coming together. So they are generating synergistic effects and making sure that everyone is under the same umbrella and discussing aspects which are of value to everyone else. Something that you correctly mentioned, the environment. We understand battery technologies, which correctly mentioned by Angelo was the lithium-ion ones. and they have a problem of overheating. Heat is something that is a lot in Dubai. So flight testing them, making sure that they work in this environment is very convenient. And to make sure it's a pilot project, make sure it works both in the short and the long run, will add a lot of value to the other players in the industry, not only to the UAE. So data, once again, is going to generate a lot of effect. Data-driven decision-making is going to facilitate further ups across the world as well. So yeah, I think it's very much there, right at the top, if not at the top, with the various events taking place in the AAM space globally.
So Angelo, we see a lot of companies that we recognize on this list. So what are your thoughts about the names appearing on it and what that could possibly mean for the show?
Well, they usually don't let us engineers attend these air shows for various reasons.
You might be too honest.
Well, whether we troll the marketing people or
Oh yeah.
or otherwise, if you're an engineer that supports Joby or Archer, you got to keep your mouth shut. You don't want to disclose certain things like, oh yeah, we're still redesigning that blade or that, that we have to fix this. You don't want to hear that type of marketing from an engineer. I do go to air shows, and in part, it's really just to show some love and up to our members and just catch up. But it's a great opportunity for them to celebrate and market their capabilities. And these air shows serve a purpose to, I mean, in this case, maybe potentially generate orders, prospective orders or just interest. I mean, a struggle we're still having is getting the word out about a lot of these aircraft. I'll show somebody a photo of the Archer Midnight and they'd never seen it before. And it's something I wanted to start doing through VFS, is going on college campuses and showing them photos of aircraft, helicopters, and even just asking them, like, what's this? Like, oh, it's a Black Hawk. Like, what's this? Oh, it's I have no idea. Like, oh, it's the Archer Midnight. All right, next. You got to educate people. And these air shows are a great way to do that, and celebrate the excellence and awesomeness of what's happening in this sector.
I mean, you barely need to convince me. I used to run trade shows, so and we're doing the PX4 Developer Summit in Atlanta soon. So if you want to come meet some drone people on the development side, also on the OEM and manufacturer side, stop in. Dom, what's your take on Dubai, what they're doing with AAM and the purpose of the show?
Well, I think Angelo really needs to go to know what the marketing people are promising, so he can come back and make sure he can meet those requirements. I think we're all, some of our science, I'm on the science side, we have the same challenge. We have a lot of weather companies that embellish what we could do and marketing side. And so I get that. A lot of times I have to keep my own mouth shut, even though I'm running my own business, to be honest about what we could do. And that's what, we try to do at TruWeather, is be honest about what is really possible. But on the Dubai Air Show, so I'm really bummed that I can't get out there this year. There's just so many shows, and we only could be at several places at a time. I did talk to Dubai GACA, though, I should say, their Civil Aviation Authority, last week in Japan. So I do understand what's happening out there. And I think that obviously they're, the Middle East, especially UAE, Dubai, and Al Dhafra, they're leading. I'm sorry, Abu Dhabi. They're leading. Al Dhafra is where I went to go to my military base back in the 1990s. It shows you how my mind is. I'm losing my mind, but they're leading and trying to push the envelope. And we talked about pre-certification of aircraft flying and all those kinds of things. So it does give some of these EVTOL operators a chance to start flying while they're still trying to reach 100% certification here in the United States. So no, I think what they're doing is good. I think obviously there's a strong market pull in that area. We have money, you have people who have desire to, take advantage of new technologies because they can afford it. And I think there's a lot of learning that goes on in those shows out in the Middle East. So I think it's a great thing. I wish I could be out there, but not this year.
Yeah, I think it's a great kind of different new arena, growing arena where you can see how these technologies are being developed. There's nothing like a good show to get people talking and communicating, because ultimately the business has to be done person to person when you're talking about technology this complex. As you know, Don, if you weren't walking the floors yourself, where would your business be right now, right?
Well, especially in an emerging, what makes this really, this whole industry challenge is, we're trying to fly an airplane, build it at the same time, and write the regulations for it. You have to, you got to talk to people directly to learn about what all the challenges are that still need to be addressed. And that's, you listen, I listen when I go to these things and try to understand that. And, and then talking about regulatory environment, we're still, standards are still being written, and rules are still being made. And it's actually exciting to be doing that. But you have to do it face to face. It's really hard. When you have a 1 hour scheduled meeting, you just don't get the same side chat that you get, and you really start at the bar solving problems, talking about problems that need to be solved, and you could do it in a way that is in public. So it's all important.
Captain Fahad, any last words before we move on?
Well, innovation is key, as I mentioned before, and the AAM space requires this. People, as you correctly mentioned, need to talk candidly on challenges as well as solutions. Something that Don picked up very rightly, regulatory frameworks is something which is wanting still in AAM. Innovate 28 from FAA and USA is one thing that's coming ahead. There is CAR 12, which has been pushed by UAE, GCAA, so they're working on that side as well. But we need to tread this path and tread this carefully as well, because on the basis of these standards, there will be a lot of other development that will take place. If not done correct, if the base is not correct, then things will turn, sorry to use this phrase, bad to worse very quickly.
It'll cost a lot of money to people who are building stuff if they have to, pivot. And so you got to really keep, you can't be dogmatic about this, right? I mean, you have to be ready to pivot. And so how do you do that? You have to know what's going on, right? To be able to leave yourself escape hatches, right? Or alternate methods to get to somewhere. I mean, we're seeing that a little bit with Part 108 now being the MRAeS in the US, right? And so, we have mixed feedback on that, because, there's some parts of the industry that went, a certain direction, and now the FAA is, got some other things that they want to introduce here. And so it's, they're like, we could talk about how that impacts current businesses if they're not, moving in the direction that the regulatory is going to go. Because one of the things I've learned in life is, the regulator is more flexible now than I've ever seen. I mean, I've been around a while working with the FAA, and I'll talk about the FAA. They are obviously really working hard to be agile, to listen. They recognize the economics around this. They know safety is the priority, but they also know, you have to have the business case for this to work. And I give them a lot of credit for really working extra hard to try to make this, work. But in the end, it's still going to come down to, we got to have safety and some measure of policy and rulemaking that's going to ensure that everyone knows what's going on, right? And I think it's a tough battle. It's tough to watch this in real time, but it is healthy, and we'll get there.
Healthy and required. That's the way forward.
And required.
It's definitely a regulation.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's definitely a balancing act, because especially now, I think the regulators with the way the tech space captured the imagination for years. They were afraid to regulate even when they should have in some cases, because they didn't want to hold back quote unquote innovation. And it's sometimes you have to remind industry that without the regulation, you can't move forward in business with confidence, right? So that I think modern regulation, one of the best terms I ever heard was from Swiss FOCA, open source regulation. The concept that yes, we're going to have some rules, but we're always going to leave like a little bit of lane for experimentation to expand and adapt those and possibly completely reconfigure them as needed. But the goal is to have rules and push innovation and figure out how to balance that. Don's article is actually going to help develop that conversation further, but I want to take a quick break just to thank our sponsors, Meadowlark Aircraft, Defend, Karasov, Lattice Aerospace, Infinite Drones, and Whisper. We keep racking up the sponsors. Don is always pounding the pavement and bringing great people into the fold to help support the show. We also want to thank the audience for tuning in, and then we're going to move on to the next article. That's you, Don. So what's going on with the Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing Advanced Air Mobility Aircraft Integration Pilot Program? What is it? That's a huge acronym. So what is this participation selection thing that's going on, and why is it going to be important?
So the EIPP, as they call it, EVTOL and AAM Integration Pilot Program, is really an outgrowth of the drone IPPs back in 2017-18. I think my understanding is, they're going to probably choose roughly 5 pilot project participants. Let's say that fast. And it's going to be a 3-year effort after the first project becomes operational. There'll be no funds with this. The FAA is not going to guarantee any money. So it means that, those that have good state support or support from other funding vehicles and grants are going to probably have an advantage, because to do some of what is outlined here, you have to have some money in order to have infrastructure and structure this properly. And obviously they'll be contributing in-kind resources from some companies, I'm sure, like the OEMs that are going to be involved. I know Joby and Archer have already said they're going to be involved. And it's really comes out of the executive order 14307, Unleashing American Drone Dominance. It's going to have to be led by a state, local, tribal, territorial government who will partner with private organizations, and they will have to demonstrate experience in eVTOL or other AAM development, manufacturing, and operations, or new supporting technologies enabling AAM integration in the NAS, the National Airspace System, which is where TruWeather fits in, obviously, in the supporting enabling technologies. They're going to look at, they want several areas of focus. They want air taxis. They want longer range fixed wing flights moving people in the forms of advanced regional aircraft capabilities, such as short takeoff and landing, which again means it doesn't have to be electric. Just needs to meet the requirements. People always say, what does advanced air mobility mean? Well, it is hybrid or alternative propulsion methods, but it's also, this idea of regional air mobility that's going to, really increase the scaling and the affordability of that. It could be moving cargo. It could be, associated with logistics and supply chain. And most importantly, it really needs to be increasing automation safety, because for this industry to really scale, we got to have a lot of automated technologies that are going to enhance safety and efficiency, right? So I think those are the areas they want to see in a technical demonstration, U.S.-based aircraft and technology. They want to see overall economic and geographic representation, which means, we're going to be looking at different parts of the country, and then propose models of public-private partnership. And, I'll drive that point home. I mean, to solve this low-altitude weather problem, it isn't going to be government funded. I mean, and I know that, many people like their free weather data from the government, but it's just not gonna, and that data is not sufficient. That model is not sufficient for what I consider scaling economically profitable businesses. You could always use that data, but you're not going to fly as much as you can, because the uncertainty is going to cost you money. And you got to think of the investments in weather systems and technologies as a revenue producer, not as a cost, because it does come down to you want to fly in 100% of acceptable weather conditions. And right now we see about 30% cancellation rate on even general aviation and helicopters when they could fly, and that's due to the uncertainty. So those lessons are important. And so I think public-private partnership in the weather infrastructure and other areas, obviously like detect and avoid radar and other communications, is going to be really important. And it's no different than the highway system in the United States. It used to be all funded by the federal government. Now you're seeing a lot of toll roads. It's all, people have to pay as they use them. And I think it's going to be important for the industry to bake that into their business model, that there will be services that will come from outside the government that are going to require costs that they need to include, not because it's something that the government wants to make you have, but because you're going to need it for your the economies. And then they're also, talking about policy and regulatory insight, which there'll be a lot of back and forth on that, aircraft and operational readiness. And, I think, what we're going to see is a lot come out of this. It's a very complex stew of events and capabilities. And I think it's going to go a long way to help answer a lot of questions that are still standing out there. Let's not forget about community acceptance, community engagement, and things of that nature. So that's I guess it's due in December, and I know there's a lot of folks working on this. As a weather company, we are agnostic, so we get to live in everyone else's operational sphere, and we hear a lot and know a lot about what's going on in this area.
So, Angelo, what do you think about this Bring Your Own EVTOL program by the federal government?
Well, it's encouraging. I think I was on Capitol Hill maybe a month or two ago, and we were talking about AAM, and I think there's a lot of emotion, I think, within this community as far as seeing the progress made outside of the United States. EHong is flying, and people are being paid, or people are paying to fly in these EVTOL. And here we are in the United States. We're not there yet. And so part of what we were discussing is we need a win. Even if it's a lowercase w win, we need something. And I do think this administration and the FAA are willing to help accelerate things. And that's encouraging. I mean, it's going to take some time either way. But I'm encouraged to see that there is, the FAA and this administration are serious, because it does take a while. Like, to my right, it's on the left side of the screen, is the 609, right? First flight of the 609 was 2003, and first transition was 2005. It's still not a certified aircraft, right? And if you look at that timeline for the Midnight or the S4, like, wait a minute, guys, is it 2030s? Is it 2040s? They need to accelerate. I think there's some lessons learned, but it's not easy to certify an aircraft. And they have the advantage of substantial investment. When you're comparing an eVTOL company and how much money they actually have to play with versus a Blackhawk, Sikorsky, which is a 9% margin type aircraft, like, they don't have a lot of money to play with, guys. So there's not going to be a lot of advancements, whether it's at Leonardo or otherwise. They have this investment. They're using it wisely. They're going to be able to accelerate development, and we were bullish that they're going to get to the finish line soon.
Yeah, that's an interesting point there about the money. Where does it come from, and how is it applied? Anybody who's still in AAM in the post Uber, what was it, Accelerate or Ascend world? Elevate. Yeah, that conference really kicked off popular imagination in the space, but was completely dysfunctional in other ways. And any company you still see attacking this problem today they're there because they manage their money properly, or at least have done as good a job as they possibly can in the face of all of the challenges and, like you said, the low margins and the long time frames that it takes. But back on the government kind of restructuring point, yeah, you know, I've been in the drone space. I think this is my 11th year, maybe 10th. I'm bad at public math, just like Don. But you know, I've seen a lot of promises versus what was actually delivered in the United States. And I'm actually happy that there's like a level of like guilt about that at this point, that we're legitimately restructuring things. And in some cases where we might be taking off red tape too fast, but there was so much that you couldn't even see which tape needed to be cut or not. As long as we're keeping safety at the forefront, we have a lot of data globally to lean on to help bring the United States, I think, back to prominence in these technology spheres. So, Captain Fahad, what's your thoughts on Don's article and basically the layout or restructuring the pilot program in the United States?
So there are parallels that we can draw between what is happening at Dubai Air Show and what is there in the EIPP thing. I think their approaches or two sides to the same coin, where UAE is building the playground, and on the other hand, FAA is writing the rule book. They're generating a lot of data, which is very, very important right now, and they are essential for each other's survivability. So the regulatory framework needs to be scalable, needs to be increased. There is a phrase that we coin or has been coined in the recent past. It's known as risk-based regulation, and that is the way forward, in my opinion. So this methodical process is something that is required. If we don't follow this, then we are looking for a lot of problems. Commercial viability is being looked at from the Dubai Air Show's perspective, and that is the why part of it. And the equation on the other side is how. The FAA is doing its due diligence, something which was mentioned by Angelo as well, and I would like to take this. So pragmatism is something which I have found out to be missing in the recent few years, if not a decade or two, from what is coming from the West. As correctly mentioned by Angelo, eHong in China, Aero HT, there are a few more names that are there which have gone international. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi, and a few more places. They have already done demo flights. Certified, not certified, rules, no rules, but they are pushing the envelope. Safety, once again, risk management needs to be at the forefront. There needs to be regulations, but once again, the red tapeism that you mentioned, the bureaucracy that is there, has led to the situation where we are at right now, where we are left wanting at a few fronts, and correct names and correct people need to be in the correct place, thinking correctly as well. And it's all about synergy, as I mentioned before. And there's this African proverb. It goes like, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. Long-term sustainable successes and processes depends on strategic partnerships. Once again, pragmatic strategic partnerships and unified efforts that will facilitate growth. It's a win-win situation, not a win-lose, where the market or the industry is not facilitated and we're facing challenges on the global scale of things. And I think, which I believe is the correct way forward, EIPP is the step in the correct direction.
Yeah, I think that kind of brings back our point that we were making a little bit earlier about finding that balance, right? I think initially with drone technology in the United States, you're looking at a very, very developed commercial air traffic system the FAA has managed, and it made the conversation a little bit too much about innovation versus regulation rather than innovators working with regulators to move us forward. And over time, I've seen that dismantled and gotten to a better place. But it's definitely been a journey. We have some comments from the audience that I want to get to. So Farah Mahmood, I hope I'm pronouncing your first name right, is Tesla expected to enter advanced air mobility sector in the near future, in your opinion? I'm not even sure as a battery provider, because as far as I know, they don't make their batteries. They just make the layouts. And if the Boring Company is any indication with the Las Vegas loop at what you would expect from Tesla, I would not be excited if they did, to be honest. Anybody else comments on that?
Tesla's not quiet about advertising anything, and I have not heard one peep about that. So,
yeah.
Yeah, their big move seems to be more towards robotics or automated vehicles on the ground.
Space.
Well, SpaceX.
Not Tesla, but they're subsidiaries that work with Elon Musk. But yeah, I have not heard a peep on that, and so I would be surprised unless they've got some skunk works going on somewhere. They're going to pop out with an AAM vehicle, right, Captain?
That is correct. I certainly believe, and I agree with John. There's not even a whisper of it. So their niche is all to do with EVs on the road and the space program that they're intending with the SpaceX. So the final frontier is what they're looking at, not the intermediate where we are focusing right now.
Now, personally, I will opine here, Mike. I think it's going to be. I would have taken on the air travel first for full autonomy over the ground, because the ground's very complicated, and I think you're starting to see some of that. Even though as higher risk air is, and as complicated as it appears, it's not as complicated as having a soccer ball, run out in front of a car and trying to figure out if you're going to hit the kid or hit the car next to you. There's a lot of challenges in that area. So I think air would have been a little easier.
Also, maneuverability is in 3D space rather than
maneuverability. Right, you got it.
Yeah.
If you've ever been down the street in New York City, you have two cars parked on both sides of the road, and you have just barely enough room to fit down the road. You have no maneuverability at all.
Yeah. At one point, they did do a drone, because we had them at one of the shows, or I had seen them at a show, and basically their engineering around that was about the battery layout. So that was their reasoning behind it. So there's so many more complications to building an aircraft that I see no core competencies in yet. And also the manufacturing is a little different, to say the least. So Aero Future, Advanced Air Mobility Unveiled. That's a YouTube account. Says, solid point, our industry, especially new players, need to be careful with their way too optimistic promises regarding certification timelines. So cautioning, if you're going to get in the game, Tesla, today, you have a long certification timeline ahead of you. And Goodyear Emmanuel on LinkedIn says he wants to be an aircraft mechanic. So if anybody's hiring out there, please look them up. Okay.
So I was just at the ribbon cutting for Leonardo, just opened an MRO facility in Milton, Florida, and they're probably hiring. So he should look into that. Low cost of living, brand new facility, and they're already planning to expand. And so Milton, Florida.
Yeah, and we were just talking about Leonardo before the podcast kicked off. Not as well known, but surprisingly large company from Italy. With great experience in the realm of aerospace. What was the body count there? You said 60,000 was the head count?
Globally. A lot of their engineers live in Italy, but North Philly, they build a few helicopters, including, the 609 will be built there. And then they just opened this new maintenance facility down in Florida Ron DeSantis was there. The lieutenant governor was there. This was Thursday last week, so they're ready to go.
All right, hot tip, Leonardo, check him out. All right, let's go around the horn and let's tell everybody where they can find you next and what you're up to. So, Captain Fahad.
The Captain Fahad, that is the name. So, all said and done, been there, done that on the advanced air mobility stage. I've diversified into artificial intelligence and quantum computing. So that is where I'm focusing right now. The Dubai Air Show is something which I'm looking forward to as well, going across, speaking, moderating discussions. Other than this, you can find me on LinkedIn. Incidentally, that is the only social media platform that I'm on. I'm nowhere on Facebook, not on Instagram or Snapchat, blah, blah, blah. So you can find me there. Just type in Fahad ibne Masood and you'll be able to track me. I am writing a few articles with Don on advanced air mobility. So that will be there on the website as well. Other than it, you may see me on television on a few fronts related to AAM space or aviation for that matter in general.
So definitely be sure to check out his articles on autonomyglobal.co, Don's new publication hub. He has lots of great writers, who she calls her ambassadors from all of these specific industries to lend their expert opinions. So
yes, and I'm one of the ambassadors. So yeah, next gen ambassador. That's what I'm called.
Awesome. I didn't know you were an ambassador. So welcome to the team.
Thank you.
We got one question. I think we could sneak it in. We got some time. Could you please have some comments on market relevance of AAM degrees, especially the ones being offered by the UK? Cranfield and UWL are the companies. So are there like specific AAM degrees there, or?
So I work closely with the with academia, and I will say there is a niche that it's fairly established with respect to Formula One racing. You got to go to a specific school and get a specific degree to dream of working in F1, and you're generally in the UK. But with this said, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's certainly credibility in a more specialized degree. Here in the United States, there are the three centers of excellence that teach vertical flight. That's Georgia Tech, Maryland, and Penn State. And there are other affiliate schools, but those tend to have the most credibility. I mean, I can speak to by hand the specific people and the developments and accomplishments they've made in vertical flight. And so we were talking about Tesla. There's only so many helicopter engineers that exist. I don't know what Tesla would do. They'd have to send some kids to school and wait 10 years because they're all being used right now, whether it's at Joby or Archer or Bell or Sikorsky. So yeah, I would certainly strongly motivate you to study EVTOL AAM right now.
So Angelo, tell people where they could find you and where you'll be next.
Well, we have some upcoming events I may or may not be able to travel to. Our Asian Australian Rotorcraft Forum is in India this year. That's in late November. And then we have an ICAMS, we call it. It's another AAM event in Thailand. Following that, I think it's a week after. And then we have our Transformative Vertical Flight event, TVF, in San Jose, California, and that's in January. I'll definitely be at that one. And we'll get maybe 600 or 700 people to attend. That's more of a technical meeting, but we have a symposium. We have some exhibits. We'll have a little over 60 papers on aeromechanics that are being published there too. That's my travels potentially.
All right, great. Hopefully somebody will run into you there. Don, what about you? What's up next?
Well, we're very busy right now. We have 2 or 3 test beds, low altitude weather test beds that are going to be the best weather sensed locations, I think, in the world around Alliance Airport in Fort Worth, and also in Hollister in California, and expanding westward back towards the other OEM areas that they're flying. So we're busy demonstrating ground-based weather technologies like wind lidars and other capabilities, and we're processing that data and developing urban scale weather and wind models to, really bring real data in. Right now, most of your weather data is, doesn't exist below 5,000 feet except at airports. There's no winds aloft. There's no data below 5,000 feet, really. And so we're filling that gap now and trying to collect this data, build historical data sets that are really going to improve machine learning for low altitude operations in these high density areas, especially in urban areas where winds around buildings and things like that are going to become critical. So that's our focus over the next year. Our goal is to have a full end-to-end product ready to go anywhere in the world. We can drop it in any city in the world by 2028 operationally, just in time for when we start seeing the scaling of the industry.
So, Captain, you raised your hand?
Yes, I did want to pitch in a few pointers. So the degree programs, advanced air mobility specific, I know of two. One is correctly mentioned before at Cranfield, which is one advanced air mobility thing. There is the new one. It's coming in from Spain. ITERIA is the, if I pronounce this correctly, I don't know Spanish. So ITERIA is the university, and they're generating a master's in advanced air mobility, MAAM. So that is there. Advanced Air Mobility Institute, which I'm representing right now, is tending to do something as well. We are at present located with the Advanced Air Mobility Master Class taking place in Italy as we speak. So there are a few things or a few research academic portfolios which are being pushed, and correctly mentioned by Angelo, this is a niche within the aviation niche. So a lot of people who are wanting to do this will be very much required by the industry in the near as well as the distant future.
Well, all of that is great progress, and I want to thank all of you for participating in the panel. I also want to give a thank you to our sponsors, Meadowlark Aircraft Defense Solutions, Carasoft, Volatus Aerospace, Infinite Drones, and Whisper. Just a reminder, on Dawn of Autonomy tomorrow, Pedram from Infinite Drones and Nested Technologies is going to be on, so be sure to check that out. Thank you to the audience for participating. All of you make this show possible. We are out here.